Well, James Vaughan, whose record diamond broke, joins us live now. James, good morning. We were going to ask you what it was like walking into school, but we've just found out you actually had already left school. So tell us what that moment was like, because you probably know exactly what Max Diamond feels like.
Yeah, I mean, not sure I would have been walking in like Daniel, but I can understand why he'd feel like that. Yeah, for me, I was back to normality. I was back to training the week after, so I didn't have to go into school. But I can imagine it's an amazing feeling for Max today.
Yeah, did you walk into your friendship group maybe with a bit of a strut?
Yeah, I did. To be fair, I was staying in digs with the rest of the academy boys, so I think I walked in with a bit of a strut, but not too much.
James, look, we're just seeing your goal actually on screen. We're seeing you run off and celebrate widely. Very similar actually in terms of wild celebrations like Max Diamond too. Can you tell us what it was like though, those feelings you were going through at that moment?
Yeah, it's quite surreal, to be honest with you. It feels like a long time ago now. Yeah, it was a bit of a blur. Come on, scored the goal, obviously, and everyone swarms you like they do. It's what dreams are made of, and it's something that I look back on now, and it's obviously the best memory I had while I was playing football. And I was fortunate enough to be at the game when Max broke the record at the weekend, so I could see what it meant to him and his teammates. So yeah, it was an amazing feeling.
Yeah, lots of actually similarities between the two. You were an Everton player. He scored against Everton. I think the same manager in charge on the touchline at Everton. I'm just wondering, how much did your life change after that?
Yeah, I think it was massive for me. I've been fortunate to be around youth football for the last few years. So, I've watched Max Diamond, and I think anyone who's been around youth football won't be surprised by the rise he's had. I think for me, it was a little different. I think it came around pretty quickly for me, so it did change my life a lot, and for the better.
I'm sure it did. I'm sure Max probably feels very similar to you this morning as well. Look, the rules are certainly changing and adapting. I think certainly Max has to get adapting at the different dressing room because of his age and the differences. I was actually at Gillingham last week, and they had the same situation. They had a couple of youngsters. They had to move everybody around. The media room got moved so that these players can change in separate dressing rooms. Is that the same situation as it was for you back then?
No, it was very different for me back then. I had some quite senior pros that I was getting changed with, and I had a lesson in life, should we say, in the changing room, but I wouldn't change it. Some fantastic characters around at the time, and I learnt a lot off them.
You had the likes of was Duncan Ferguson around then as well. Must be interesting, that moment when he's around too.
Yeah, it is. And like I say, for me, they were my heroes. To be in a changing room with them and then preparing for a game as they do was special for me at the time. And it's something I wouldn't change. Obviously, I know rules have changed these days, but for me, it was a massive learning curve being around those and preparing for a game with them.
Did I hear you say earlier you were in the stadium when Diamond scored that goal? What was your reaction? Did you know immediately that he was going to beat your record by just 197 days, by the way?
Yeah, it was crazy, to be honest with you. My little boy loves going to the Everton games, and we've never been to an away fixture, so I'd promised him I'd take him to one, and it was only the day before we decided to go down to Arsenal. So we were in the stadium, and I had a feeling all day. I've known for a while, to be honest, if I'm truthful. I know how good Max is, and at the same time, I think I got away with one earlier last season with Rio and Gamora at Liverpool. I think both of those are two players that I thought for a while that were going to break the record. So to be in the stadium with my little boy watching, I think he was a little bit disappointed, but for me, I couldn't think of a better player to break it.
What a special moment that is, that your boy was there to share the moment. Look, you said you knew it could potentially come with Max Diamond. I remember seeing his talent in pre-season, actually, a game against Villarreal, and everyone in the Emirates just lit up when he came onto the pitch. He's got that aura about him, despite being so young. How far can this kid really go, James?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I've watched him for a few years now, and one thing you don't want to do is put too much pressure on him. He's, as you said, his life's going to change from this day forward, but he's a special talent. I expect to see massive things for him in the future, and like I say, it's probably an honour that it's him that's broke out of all the players that have come before.
Yeah, James, you do work with a lot of young footballers. How difficult is it to guide somebody who has the talents of Diamond and so much potential? How do you help them see that through and make the next steps in their careers?
I think it's just understanding that football's full of ups and downs, and I say it a lot, that the best players are the ones that can get through the downs and recover and go again. And I think players like Max and the talent that he has, he won't have experienced too much at the moment, but you can see that he's got a head on his shoulders. I believe he's got very good people around him. So I think hopefully his talent will just be able to take charge and he can go on to massive things in the future.
I know Mikel Arteta has spoken before about Max at the start of the season, saying, despite his age, we've got to still play him because he's that good. He has that big an impact at the club. Talk about Mikel Arteta. He was in your team on that day that you broke the Premier League record. He scored that day as well. First of all, what was he like to play with? Did you see those managerial qualities in him even back then?
He was a true professional, to be honest with you. He didn't leave any detail out. He trained like I've never seen anyone train before. Going back to when we played, times were very different. He was the first player that would get injured and bring his own physio in, live with his physio and make sure he done everything correct. It's weird, someone asked me the question the other day, did I see him as a manager? And I probably didn't, but now I look back, I can't believe I didn't see it. And, I think he's doing amazing things at Arsenal and I'm really pleased for him.
I was going to say, look, let's talk about where Arsenal are at right now. I know probably difficult for your son on Saturday, but look, when you look at the overall picture, you look at a player that you used to play with in Mikel Arteta and the job he's doing. Can he finish the job off this season, do you think? Is the gap now insurmountable for Arsenal?
Look, the hardest part's probably getting over the line for them, but time after time they're coming up with the goods, and every time you think they might have a falter, they're going again. And there's not long to go left in the season. They've got a top squad, top players, and I think this could be their year. Yeah.
Well, Gooners, as you've just seen, this wasn't just another football interview. This was one of those moments that reminds you how quickly football moves. One generation passes the torch to the next, right in front of our eyes. Because think about it for a second. James Vaughan held that Premier League record for nearly 2 decades, and now a young Arsenal talent, Max Dowman, comes along and breaks it. And instead of bitterness or ego, Vaughan is sitting there saying he's actually happy it was Dowman who did it. That says a lot about the moment. But for us as Arsenal fans, this story goes beyond just a record. This is about what's coming next for Arsenal, when someone like Vaughan's, who works around youth football and has seen hundreds of prospects, says he's watched Dowman for years and isn't surprised by his rise. That should get your attention. Because people inside the academy world don't say things like that lightly. And you could already feel it earlier this season when he appeared at the Emirates. The reaction from the crowd wasn't the usual nice young player coming on. The stadium lit up. There's something about him. That presence, that confidence, that aura Vaughan mentioned. Some players just look like they belong on that stage from day one. Now, of course, we have to keep our heads here. Arsenal fans have seen plenty of talented youngsters come through over the years, and the worst thing we could do right now is pile ridiculous expectations on a teenager. But what makes this situation different and honestly encouraging is the environment around him. You've got Mikel Arteta managing the club. Vaughan even talked about what Arteta was like as a player, obsessive with details, incredibly professional, someone who treated football like a science. If there's a manager you'd trust to guide a talent like Dowman the right way, it's him. Add to that the squad Arsenal have built. Experienced leaders, a competitive dressing room, a team fighting for the biggest trophies again, and that's the perfect setting for a young player to grow without being thrown into chaos. And I really liked Vaughan's point about football being full of ups and downs, because right now everything is exciting. Headlines, records, hype. But the real test for players like Dowman will come later. Difficult games, criticism, injuries, moments where things don't go perfectly. The players who become elite are the ones who come through those moments stronger. And if the people around him are right about his mentality, Arsenal might be looking at a future star for the next decade. And here's what makes it even more exciting for us Gooners. At the same time, the club is fighting to finally end that 22-year wait for the Premier League title. You've also got the next generation already stepping forward. That's how big clubs stay on top. Not just winning today, building tomorrow at the same time. Now I want to hear from you, Gooners. Do you think Max Dowman could become a future Arsenal superstar, or should we calm the hype and let him develop quietly? Drop your opinion down in the comments. And if you enjoy real Arsenal fan reactions, honest opinions, and breaking Arsenal news like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next video. Come on, you Gunners!